What's up, Desktopers? Xavier Wills here for Desktop Bodybuilding, and in this interview with James Hollingshead, we discuss a range of topics, how he thought he would have placed in the 2020 Mr Olympia had he been able to compete there. Plus, we also go really deep as well and get into the loss of his mother and also his good friend Luke Sandoe and how he actually succeeded and was his best during those tough times. So, hope you guys really do enjoy this interview of James Hollingshead. Also, I want to mention we've got a Desktop Bodybuilding Clips channel now that's out, and it's going to have the shorter clips from these longer form interviews and even longer form podcasts that we're going to be launching soon too. So hope you guys enjoy that. So make sure you do subscribe and click the notification bell button on that channel. Also do it on this channel too if you want to be up to date with all the bodybuilding news, plus all the interviews that I'm going to be doing from now onwards on this channel. So that's it from me. Hope you guys enjoy the interview. What's up, Desktopers? Xavier Wills here for Desktop Bodybuilding, and today I'm joined by James Hollingshead. He's a two-time IFBB Precontest winner and a two-time Mr Olympia qualified competitor as well, and a real personality of the sport. So I'm pleased to welcome James Hollingshead to Desktop Bodybuilding. Mate, how you doing?
Xavier, very, very good. Thank you, mate. Appreciate, before we get into it, appreciate you having me on, mate. We've been talking for a while, and we've managed to line it up. So it's nice.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to talk to you, man, because you're someone who I haven't interviewed and you're making waves in the sport. I've interviewed, obviously, your late, great training partner as well, Luke Sandoe, who was, an awesome personality. And I got on really well with Luke as well. And he's an absolute legend. How cool is that?
See, we've always got him by our side.
Yeah, but he was an absolute legend, man. And he's one of those guys as well, but sort of reminds me sort of you, at least the way you come across and everything like that. With obviously your different sort of, you got your differences in your personality, but obviously that was a massive loss for you. I know you lost your mother as well. I don't know if that was last year or a year prior. So you've been through a lot of obviously grief and stuff lately, but in that you've been extremely successful, at least from the outside looking in, at least in your bodybuilding endeavors. So I suppose straight off the bat, we'll go through that and discuss, I suppose, how that tragedy has turned into success for you and how you've maybe even used that or not used that, or how it's sort of been for you over the past couple of years dealing with those sorts of things and obviously being, at your best in bodybuilding.
Absolutely. It's funny with bodybuilding. Bodybuilding always seems to be one of those things, for me at least, that I often perform my best off the back of something not being great. And it's kind of always been that way. And obviously in my younger life, like, there was no real tragedies, but like certain circumstances that were maybe a little bit negative, like relationships breaking down and stuff like that. I always found that off the back of them, you get like this propel of energy where you can use it into like something positive. And you got two choices, everybody knows. You either overwhelm yourself on thinking about that particular situation and letting it weigh you down, or trying to come out the back of it and using it as a tool to move forward. And no one wants to lose anybody. No one wants to experience things that I know that you personally experienced and I have as well. And it's not something we would choose, but you have a choice off the back of those things in order to know how to go forward with them. And I've just always been the sort of person that, I appreciate that we've got one life. We've got one go at this, even more so knowing that when you lose people, it makes it much more real and it makes it much more apparent that you don't have time to waste. So, off the back of those thoughts, I always just think you've just got to chase whatever you want to chase, do whatever you're going to do, and enjoy whatever you're trying to enjoy. Because the last thing that I want to do personally is just sit here until the end, So it's just about finding something that you love doing and gives you purpose and chasing it. And whether you get there or not, the whole pursuit in itself is the purpose. Not all of us are going to reach the destination, whether it be because we just don't get there or because life doesn't take us there. But regardless, having a reason and a purpose is the best thing that you can possibly have in life. And I found that these particular tragedies have just emphasized reason even more. Basically, I think purpose comes from loss sometimes.
Yep. And we discussed this almost a little bit before we started as well, about how, in myself, I used, like the loss of a partner. The next prep I did, I was like, well, this is easy compared to what she went through, because she went through cancer and all that sort of stuff as well. And I was like, well, this is easy, and I was pushing my body to a level where you shouldn't really push your body and it's really negative on your body, but you think you're doing the right thing by, going harder and think I'm going harder than the next guy, but sometimes you can go too hard. Have you struggled with that at all in terms of, because you obviously did suffer loss and all that sort of stuff? Did you use that as motivation, I suppose, to push yourself harder and want to achieve something, because I suppose maybe you faced your own mortality sort of thing as well? Because I know I have lately, at least, anyway.
Yeah, no, definitely. There was many a moment where I'll tell you this, like the most difficult thing for me over the past 2 years was going to bed at night and realizing how real death is. Like, and I'm not trying, not trying to be morbid, but just your mind shifts when you lose someone close to you. And obviously, I lost my mother before Luke passed away, and I found that after that, every night before going to bed for a long time, mortality was the thing that was on my mind, and it was like alarm bells that you just you can't. Although you're frightened, I was like frightened at the end. I was frightened that it was coming. Like at first, I couldn't understand that it could be any day now. But then after a while, it became the inspiration to live in between now and then. But there was certainly times, as relating to the question, I overdid it probably the first year. Like when my mother was first diagnosed, I did competition after competition after competition. And to be fair, I burnt out massively. And although I did okay, I definitely hurt my physique and my progress because I just didn't want to give up because of pride, the pride of trying to do well for them. I remember my mother messaging me, and I was like, "Mum, shall I? I can come and see you and I can spend time with you. I want to be there for you." But my mum, being my mum, typically was like, "No, you don't compete. I want to see you do well." So obviously, I just kept dieting for shows. Probably dieted for too long, ended up destroying my physique for a while, and yeah, and then luckily I did okay, but in the grand scheme, I probably should have been a bit more aware. Like you said with your previous experiences, it's very easy to go full throttle because you know that someone else is hurting more than you.
Yeah.
And you're like, this is nothing. Like I'm not even hurting. Like this. I've chose to do this. This isn't going to destroy me. I can do this. But in hindsight, it can destroy you. So yeah, you just got to be aware, I suppose. But you learn from these mistakes. Like you have and I have.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you're better for it as well. And something I actually discovered as well, I heard someone talking about it. Someone had actually lost a partner as well to cancer, and he's a sort of motivational speaker sort of guy. And he said, the way he sort of looks at it in his head, he says, "I'm the lucky one." He said, "Yeah, like I never wanted to lose my partner, but he said I'm lucky because I get the life lessons from losing someone and then going through that." So that's sort of what I've done and the way I've looked at it now. And if someone else ever talks to me about it, go, "Oh, yeah, I feel bad for you." I'm like, "No, don't feel bad for me. I'm the lucky one." You know what I mean? So that's sort of a different, I suppose.
And you find off the back of it, you end up having conversations with people you hadn't realized have been in similar situations. Yeah. So, like the reason I actually messaged you is because I didn't realize that you sent an inbox on Instagram, obviously, just to catch up message. And I saw it off the back of watching one of your videos where I didn't realize you were going through what you're going through, which inspired me to reach out because we've been through a similar situation. So I've certainly found that since going through such things, the people that are feeling quite similar have come out of their felt comfortable enough to come out of their shell and discuss things as well, which can only help. If everyone's there to talk to each other and help each other through these experiences, then that's never a negative thing. That's something that I've noticed come to be quite a lot since the occurrences of the last kind of 2 years.
Yeah. And then before we delve deeper into your bodybuilding side of things, and obviously we mentioned facing your own mortality and all that sort of stuff, are you someone that's sort of like looked for answers in terms of all that sort of stuff? I know Dorian Yates, obviously he went down the side of, trying psychedelics and all that sort of stuff. Have you I mean, for me, that's sort of something that sort of interested me based on what's going on in my life. You know what I mean? Just because I'm like, sort of look for answers and all that sort of stuff. You hear about DMT and being the spiritual molecule and all that stuff. Is that something that ever interests you? Or
I'm a trippy person anyway. Like, listen, I don't think I even need anything to take me there. Like, I'm constantly in my own head trying to find answers. The reason in 2015 I went up Kilimanjaro was part of that experience, trying to find myself. Like, I know everyone says I'm trying to find myself, but I mean it genuinely. Trying to find yourself, because I was only a bodybuilder up to that point, and I didn't know if there was anything else to me. So I have chased that kind of road, but not through the same means. Like, I haven't had psychedelics and stuff, but what I've done is put myself in experiences that are outside of my shell, my comfort zone, and allowed them then to I suppose what that does is that helps you identify parts of your own self that you weren't aware of, because it's an experience that you wasn't prepared for. And I encourage everybody to do that. I think that's a really important thing to do. But yeah, certainly, like, listen, when my mum was alive, Xavier, like, we would sit in the garden in the evening, and I would start waffling on about anything deep and thoughtful. And my mum used to be like, God, here he goes again. But I am that guy. I'm the same as, like, I'm not saying you're exactly like that, but I certainly like to delve deep into the meanings of and reasons why, and try to understand things at a deeper level. Definitely.
Yep. And it's actually pretty funny you actually say that. My mum is actually living with me now, and she's hoping to go down to Tasmania to visit my, her partner and my brother and all that sort of stuff tomorrow. But because we had some COVID cases, and she's been shut down on that, unfortunately. But I say to her sometimes, I said, Mum, do you ever think about this? Do you ever think about, and I'll go about something deep, and she goes, no. And I'm just like, oh, okay. I'm just the one that thinks about that sort of stuff. So yeah, it sounds like I'm very similar to you in terms of those sorts of ways. Things very deep about certain things, overthinks things probably.
Yeah, I wonder if that's because of, like, a generational thing where the world is, we are able to see a lot more than they could, and we're more, we're I wouldn't say we're more aware, but we're certainly touched by more things than they have been, because their life. I'm not saying they lived a simple life, but exposure is everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we live in a time now, like what we're doing now, like they couldn't do this when they were our age, So there's all these factors where everything's so connected and so intertwined that, of course, a lot of things are going to tickle our interest. So it's a very different time and a different. I suppose it's just a very different world than it was for them. Questions weren't needed to be answered back then. You kind of just lived your. It feels like lives back then were like much more like kind of a templated life. Now, like, you have so many routes that you can go. You can create your own path a lot easier now. And I think that's the difference between, like, our generation and the previous. Because my mum, bless her, like, lived a very, I hate to say it, but like kind of a straightforward life. The order was straightforward: kids, relationship, regular job, house, mortgage, blah blah blah. There was none of this. Okay, what if I take a risk this way? Because I think it was scarier to do that back then. I think now we're able to, like, kind of jump ship and land a bit safer than perhaps their generation. I think that's why they didn't think as deep as we did. Like, they didn't have to. Maybe it's better. Maybe they were better. Maybe it was a better time. Maybe we think too deep. But I'm certainly always interested in having these conversations with people about things that are a little bit, maybe perhaps out there.
Yeah, and I totally agree with what you just said. I've never really thought about it exactly that way. But sometimes something I've said as well, I've said, now we've got more availability to answers. So we've got more answers, but we don't have all the answers. We don't have the answer to why we're here. You know what I mean? So before we get too deep.
Well, there's more answers, Xavier, and there's even more questions now.
Exactly. Yeah. So before we get too deep and all that sort of stuff. So you mentioned climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, which is absolutely huge. How big of a hike that is, and how many days is it, and when did you do it?
Well, I've got a certificate. On the wall, just in case anyone asks. So I've got the height. It was 5,895 meters above sea level. So it's the highest. It's the highest mountain peak in Africa, and I think we did it over like a 7 to 8 day period. We set off. I think we set off, and it took about 4 days to get to the summit, and then about 2 to 3 days to get back down. So it was quite long. I'll tell you now, though, like, it's something that I would recommend everybody do.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. One thing that a lot of, I suppose, like Australians that have like a sort of comparable thing that they do is the Kokoda Trail through Gallipoli, because that's where, all the wars and stuff happened, and it's very iconic and stuff for a lot of Australian and New Zealand residents. So that's something that I sort of look at, that I'm like, that's something I'd love to do one day. One of those things that you do once in a lifetime that you always sort of, I suppose, appreciate doing, and you have a more of an appreciation for certain things, and you even, like you said, find yourself, like it's a thrown around thing. Like, I really need to find myself. And I think people sometimes just say it because they've just gotten out of a relationship or whatever, but they don't really look at the deep meaning of actually finding out about yourself and having that time alone and having that time to sort of think the way you probably wouldn't normally in day-to-day life. So that's definitely something.
Those kind of experiences, if something like that, you're totally separated from the social media side of things, like, for a period of time that you wouldn't normally choose to do so. So I think, like I say, 7 days without, like, even looking at your phone. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but wow, does it give you time to, like? Does it give you time just to feel and just to see and to just take it all in? Like, everything, all the minimal the elements become so much more impactful than they are on a day basis, because we're a little, like, again, I'm not trying to make this a big podcast, but we're a little bit blind to everything that's around us because we're so involved in everything that's immediately in front of our eyes. When you do something like that, like, everything means more that is less. So the air, you know, the sun, the clouds, like anything like that becomes so much more purposeful than it already is. And I think that's what you take away from that, is that you start to respect again some of these things that have always been here and always will be here, that are more important than what's in front of us.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's awesome, man. I love that you can talk about this sort of stuff, and a lot of people don't, I suppose, have the confidence to talk about their deep thoughts, and I think it's pretty cool that you do. But let's get into some bodybuilding sort of stuff,
Yeah, man.
and let's discuss your 2020 bodybuilding season. And it was extremely successful, getting 2 pro wins, qualifying for the 2020 Mr. Olympia, and also qualifying for the 2021 Mr. Olympia, which I think you would probably got an invite to anyway. The 2020 Mr. Olympia. Now, was it totally because you weren't able to travel and get to the US as a reason why you didn't do the 2020 Olympia?
So yeah, basically what it was, I would have had to do like a quarantine for 2 weeks in another country first. And when I'm preparing for something, it's all in. And if anything's going to even hinder my progress by 1%, I'll avoid it. Like, if I'm going to the Olympia, I can't afford to go anywhere that's going to cause me even you know, a percent loss in the ability to be my best. My head's too wide. Like, if I'm doing this big show, everything's got to run smooth, everything's got to be great. Like, I know not everything will run smooth, but I won't put myself in a position where it's guaranteed to not. So I would have had to have gone to like Dubai like everybody else for like 2 weeks or something first, and that's just not the way I'm wired. Like, I have my utilities here, I have everything I need here, I've built this life here for a reason, so that I can prepare and be the best I can be. And the fact I couldn't just go straight from here to the US was enough for me to be like, you know what, this isn't the right time for me. And when the time's right, I will. I'll know, and I'm hoping that this year will be different. If not, then I am obviously going to have to do what I just said. But you know, fingers crossed, there'll be some changes in everything by then. To some people, they'll probably say it's silly. They're like, when you've got a chance and an opportunity, you just got to do everything you can to make it happen. But you know, I've always done things the way I do them, and they've been great for me, and they've got me where I've got myself. And everything in bodybuilding for me is about feeling not comfortable, but we all suffer with levels of anxiety, and I'm one of the people that anxiety reaches a high when I'm not in control. And being in a country that I'm not familiar with would just drive me bonkers. So that's basically why it didn't happen, because I would have had to cut 2 weeks off my prep to go somewhere to not have the things that I'm used to around me, and then have to go to the US off the back of that. And you know, I was already balls deep in prep. I was already dieted down to a certain level. It just wasn't an ideal time, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it's hard where people don't realize when you're at that level of body fat and you're just a couple of weeks out, it's hard to go to a country you don't know. Okay, am I going to be able to train in a good gym? Okay, well, I've got accommodation. Okay, it doesn't have a microwave here. It doesn't have this. And then it's all these little things you got to stress about that ordinarily you wouldn't have to. You don't have the same machines and the same whatever that you're normally using in your own gym as well for an extra 2 weeks. So it is a lot of stress. And then obviously, you know, your supplements, your food, all that sort of stuff. So it just makes it sort of hard going to a country that you really don't know.
It does, man. Like, you know, bodybuilders are anal people. And if like you say, even if one thing's out of line for me, it's stress. You know, like if there's one bit of kit that I like using and it's not in that gym, that's not happening. You know, it's like Dorian, like just training Temple. He didn't want to train anywhere else. I'm the same. I'm like, I've got what I got. I've got everything I need that's got me where I got to get to, and can take me further. I need to keep doing what I'm doing because it's working. And if anything sways that, there's potential for loss here, and I don't want that.
Absolutely. So obviously, successful season, like I mentioned, you got 2 pro wins. How did you feel going into that first show that Europa? How confident were you that you were going to win that show?
Do you know what? It was really weird. It was like a forced I was convincing myself I could win it. I you know, in my head, I was always like, yeah, probably, you know, maybe I'm at that level where I'm probably a top 3 guy now, because I got top 3 obviously the year before in a couple of shows. So to see yourself as a winner is very hard because you haven't won before as a pro. But I just kept slapping myself around the face saying, mate, like, there's got to be a turning point here. Like, you have to win at some point, and why not now? You've just spent a year working, working, let's say, your bollocks off to be better than last year, and last year you got 3rd. So why can't you win? So it was just a constant reminder to myself that you can win. And you know, even if I didn't really believe it, I'd mutter it to myself, I'd say it to myself, and before long you convince yourself you can.
Yeah.
And that was really it. Like the only thing that kind of threw a spanner in the works, but it didn't really, because I was so kind of hyped, was when they said Ramy was going to do it. But you know, I was filming for Redcon at the time, and I was quite honestly saying, yeah, bring Ramy, I don't care. You know, I was like, whatever. Like, I'm not saying I could beat Ramy, but you have to, like, you can't just go like you can't turn into a wussy just because someone who's very good is going to turn up.
Yeah.
You know.
Exactly.
So even when he was announced, I was like, no, I can still win this. I can still win this.
Yeah.
He went on to win the Olympia that year, but hey, you know.
You know what? Ramy's coming off before and come in 5th or 6th at the Olympia as well. So you're pretty much saying that he could come in 8th at the Olympia if he comes in really often.
Yeah.
Say you can't get top 8. Really, at this point, I think most people are predicting you top 8 at the 2021 Mr. Olympia. So when you think about it, if he's off and you're on, it's game on.
Well, this is what I was thinking. You know, I was at the Arnold I was fortunately at the Arnold with Luke at the beginning of I think it was the beginning of 2020. Yeah. So yeah, like March time. And I saw Ramy come third, and I was there, and I wasn't super impressed. Like I was impressed, but not like, oh, he's unbeatable. Yeah. So that's why when I went into Spain, I was like, you know what? I've seen his last package. I'm not going to be deterred because he was beaten by Bonac and Dexter. And this is Dexter, who's now 50 years old and not as good as he used to be. So there is hope, you know. And I was just looking at it logically, because obviously bodybuilding is about logic as well. You have to weigh up what was someone's last presentation, what's your best presentation, how much progress have you made, how much have they made, where are they at in their career. Like, you, as a competing athlete and a bodybuilder who's still, you know, in this, those things cross your mind every day, because it is a competition at the end of the day. You are constantly evaluating your place in this bodybuilding, and I was doing that daily, and I was keeping an eye on how he was looking, you know, and with how he was looking and how everything was going on, I can say I wasn't deterred. I was more worried about Raf, I think, because I'm a very big fan of Raf and his physique. I think he's got beautiful shape. I think he's an incredible bodybuilder. So when I knew he was doing it, he was more the name. I was like, you know what? Although I picked him the year before at Spain, he wasn't at his best. And that was probably the guy I was most concerned about.
Yeah, and that's Rafael Brandao, for those who don't know who you're talking about as well. And the other thing about Big Ramy and Dexter Jackson, which you mentioned, Big Ramy obviously got beaten by Dexter in March. Go fast forward to December, Dexter falls to 9th and Big Ramy wins the Olympia. So it's amazing what can happen show to show. Like,
yeah, it's not like there's no one now that's Ronnie Coleman in the 2000s and the 90s. You know, there's no one that's like guaranteed or like Phil Heath. So that's why, like, I feel like this current crop of bodybuilders, I'm relatively confident going into the Olympia, because I just feel like no one's guaranteed to win.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of really good guys, like the top 6 to 8, but there's no one real like Ramy. If he comes in really great shape, he is very, very tough to beat.
Yeah.
But even at the Olympia just gone, like many will say, you know, there were harder guys in that Olympia lineup, obviously, but he was just obviously had the size and his best condition, probably, or one of his best conditions to date. So
yeah.
We've got it. So obviously 2 pro wins, very successful. Obviously qualified for the 2021 Mr. Olympia. Where are you at now with your prep, and how do you feel about the whole prep for 2021 at this point?
So right now we've been like literally floating at the upper end of, I think, where my weight's going to be in this prep. I think anything from this point trying to force on any more weight is going to cause issues with, you know, digestion and all that lot. You know, we're sitting at like 305 some mornings, 300 some, fluctuates obviously about 5 pounds. We've been at this weight for, you know, when I say we, I mean me and Patrick Tor. We've been at this weight for like quite a while. So I think like the longer I hold it, the more my body solidifies this new muscle. I don't feel humongous. I don't feel like I've got all the muscle in the world to compete with everybody. But I also know that once you start dieting for a show, certain things improve, like nutrition uptake, digestion, and I always find that your physique actually starts to look better for the first 8 weeks anyway. So I think this is the best off season I've had. I don't really question it too much. Like I said, I said to you before we actually started recording, I'm just here ticking boxes. I know some people out there are like, no, I'm destroying boxes, blah, blah, blah. For me, I'm always in like a 4th gear in the off season, and then I like to switch up to like 5th when prep comes, because I need somewhere to move. And I feel like it's more important for me to have those gears the right way around. I don't want to get into a prep and then feel like I need to decelerate. I want it to accelerate. So I don't know. I feel like we're in a really good spot. I feel like if we can. So last year, I didn't mind my physique. I feel like, you know, it was the first prep with Patrick, so I think we were like 90%. I think there's 10% room for improvement. Plus, on top of that, whatever improvements we've made this offseason.
Yep. When you say 90%, 90% of where you're going to get to, because your conditioning was very, very good last year. I don't think it's 90%.
I think 90% of what I could have been. I think 90% of what I think I could have been harder, and I think I could have been drier.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
that says
So
a lot, because
my
it
condition
seemed
was
very
pretty
dry
good.
and hard last year.
Yeah, but there's more. You know, Xavier. You know when you know there's more. You know. Yeah, and we had to play it safe. Like, if you ask Patrick, the last few days before the show, we said we're not going to force it for one or the other look. We're going to go right down the middle, play it safe, be relatively full and relatively dry. Because there was ways we could have tried to come in even harder, but it could have cost a little bit of fullness, a bit of volume, and then I could have lost because some of the bodybuilders that I was against were bigger guys. And that's the thing, again, you have to play your cards right. It's like Nathan when he did New York Pro in 2000 and whatever year it was when he won. He played that game where it's a big man show. He came in big. He won. If he didn't come in with that fullness that he had that year, he wouldn't have won that show. So yeah. It's, you know, it's playing the game.
Yeah, and it's funny. But then I think it was a week or two later, he did Cali and he came in.
And he was nice.
Package, yeah.
I was in Cali and he came in and he was like a rock, like a stone.
Yeah, that was crazy. I was like, I even spoke to him privately and I said, I'm like, you can just control your physique. Like, that is insane. So I mean, that's pretty cool. Or maybe it might have been an interview where I was talking to him, but yeah, that's pretty cool to be able to control your physique in that sort of way. But obviously you had to sit home, watch the 2020 Mr. Olympia as well. Watching that Olympia, did you watch that? And as naturally, I think anyone would say, I would have placed here based on my physique at the Europa or the British or whatever you think your best package.
Yeah, to a certain extent. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did definitely have that.
Where do you think you would have placed?
I would have been around where Ian was. Me and Ian would have been battling out, I think. I think. Because Ian's got certain body parts better than me, and I think I've got certain ones better than him. And I think we're very comparable because we're both, you know, I would say this, like, but because we're Caucasian with that dry kind of look, it's quite easy to compare. We've just got a different shape. So you could put us next to each other and it'd be quite easy to see the differences. You know, there are really good guys that placed below him. Amazing bodybuilders that, you know, deserve all the credit in the world. But I think at that particular Olympia, I probably would have placed around about that 7th mark.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that as well, because it's actually funny because going into your shows last year, for whatever reason, I think it's just based on how you look in individual photos by yourself. You look like you're a shorter bodybuilder than you actually are. And I've even said in a video before, I said, oh, James Hollingshead is about 5'7" or something like that. And then I had a million people in the comments flaming me and saying, but no, he's not that. He's 5'10" or 5'11" or whatever. So how tall are you? I'm
5'11". I think me and Regan are roughly the same height.
Yeah, and it surprised me because I think I saw you standing like next to or in the same call out as Jamie Johal, who's 6'5", and just in comparison, obviously anyone looks short next to him. So I think that sort of killed it for me a little bit. I was like, oh damn, and I look like an idiot calling you 5'7". I think that's why I didn't predict you to win that Europa show as well, because I'm thinking, okay, James looks great, but maybe it won't convert to stage perfectly. And man, it exceeded my expectations last year and it really blew me away. Because I think I predicted you maybe 4th or something. And I was like, wow, I was wrong on that one. So
yeah, it's all good. You know what? Like, even to be someone considered to be in that top 5 at a pro show, like, that's a blessing in itself. And then, you know, what you do, it's down to the individual then, the person, to make it different.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. There was good guys. I mean, in that Europa, you had Lucas Olzadil, who's been a top 10 Olympia. You had, obviously, you had Regan Grimes. You had Rafael Brandao. You had a whole bunch of really good names in there that even down outside the top 5 as well, there was good names. So you beat a really good lineup there, obviously, over there. And then obviously you backed it up with the British as well. How did it feel winning that British show? I know we're going back to 2020, but how did it feel winning that? Obviously, it was, you know, honoring Luke Sandoe as well, who you obviously great friends with.
It was bloody nerve-wracking because the one thing you don't want to happen off the back of a win is a loss. Yeah. you know it's all on the line. Because I even spoke to like Aaron Singerman and people like that about doing the British at one point, and a lot of the people, you know, that I spoke to were like, yeah, you know what, just go to the Olympia, there's no point putting it on the line. And I only put it on the line because once I realized the travel was going to be an issue. Yeah. So, you know, I was like, okay, now I do it. But obviously I was nervous because if I go to that show and I don't win against a smaller lineup of people that I've already managed to pip for first place, I'm going to be absolutely gutted. So there was a lot of like internal stress about trying to like replicate my look or even be better than Spain. But after I won, God, wow, fantastic. And like I say, even more so because it was on home soil and it was like a show that was dedicated to Luke. And I feel like if Luke was around still, then it would have been his show that he would have won. So I feel like vicariously, like he's kind of there. Like it's a win that he never managed to get, but it is still his win. Because I wouldn't have been able to win it without the motivation, like I said to you earlier, that Luke gave me every single day in that prep. The same sort of motivation you're talking about when you're saying it's not hard for me. He had it harder. You know, it's that kind of same feeling. There was moments in my prep where, you know, it might have been a bit of a struggle, but I was like, I remember even catching a video with Rebecca when I'm filming for Redcon, and I'm like, if Luke was here right now, he'd be drilling me in my ears and lift the weight. And that's why my victory at that show was a shared victory.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool, man. And I love the way you honored him as well, man. It was very touching. Like I watched the live stream and I was like almost getting choked up. So it was pretty damn cool, man. It was pretty cool.
I get choked up all the time. Like sometimes I just kind of wallow into my head, and even to this day, like I know it's not been that long really, but tears can just like come from the back of your eyes like that. You know,
well, what's this salty substance coming from my eyes?
I know, but it does it because it's not just because of like sadness, because it's not sadness.
Yeah,
it's because there's a lot of happiness that comes with thoughts of Luke, because he was such a character and a person that really, when he made you laugh, you'd almost die laughing, because he could make your stomach hurt because he was so funny.
Yeah.
So you know, most of my memories of Luke are me like actually laughing my ass off, and it's those tears that come through more often.
Yeah, that's cool.
You know?
That's cool.
It is cool.
Now, Luke was obviously very strong. You're extremely strong as well. It seems like all the UK pro bodybuilders seem to be insanely strong. What is it like? How are you? You're as strong as you are. Is it a genetic thing or what?
I think Jordan's to blame for that. Jordan Peters. Yeah. I think because he started all those years ago with all the DC training. I think when he first like adopted that kind of dog crap training, and then started spreading his wisdom among us all, we all started getting very competitive with each other. And obviously Luke was a good friend of Jordan, and in his earlier career adopted a lot of the principles that he did. I was kind of the last man to jump on it. I was strong, but I wasn't like as strong as those boys because I didn't really periodize my training. It was only really when Jordan took over my training in like 2016 that I started to get like silly strong on some things. So I think it's Jordan Peters' fault, to be fair. So we'll shout him out on that, because he basically turned Britain into a bunch of strong people.
Yeah,
because everyone got progressive overload became the thing. So everyone, if you're not getting stronger in your sessions and you're not recording your lifts, then you're failing.
Yeah. Now, UK bodybuilding has gotten much stronger. Obviously, we lost to Luke Sandoe, but there are a bunch of other really good UK bodybuilders, including obviously yourself. You got Jamie Johal, you got Kuba, you've got Samson Dowder, you got Nathan Diasha. There's a lot of really good names. Sasan Haradi, who's probably the most underrated bodybuilder in the world right now.
I think so.
I haven't seen him that much. But how do you, I suppose, who do you think is the biggest threat to you in terms of being the best UK pro bodybuilder over the next?
It's Nathan. It's Nathan. Nathan is number one for stats. Yeah. Like you just got to give the man his credit. Like he's won 6 pro shows. Like until I've won 6 pro shows,
he's won pro shows, plenty. Like
exactly. And until I've won an Arnold, then I can't tell him shit.
Yeah.
So he's leading a roost. I quite happily say currently I'm second, just because of stats. I'm not saying other guys can't beat me on a good day, because Samson's amazing and has beaten me before. I think Sasta wiped the floor with me a few peaks and decides to get his ass back on stage because he's amazing. But statistically, right now I'm holding second, so I'm really happy with that.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I probably didn't give Nathan his credit there, because he's come 7th place in the Olympia, which is absolutely phenomenal, and he's got a great thing.
And Xavier, when I first won my class at the British to go for the overall, he won his and he beat me in the overall, so he's always kicking my ass.
Yes. So I mean, I can't wait. I hope that turns into a bit of a rivalry. I'd love to see him get back on stage and compete at the Olympia, and it'd be cool to see you guys go head to head. Yeah,
I'd love to do the Olympia with Nathan, not just like from a competitive standpoint, but just as an experience, because we did a few years back we did Prague together. It was a really good experience being backstage with Nathan, because I've always looked up to him from a bodybuilding perspective, because he was junior Mr. Britain in like 2007. and I saw him win, and that was when I decided that I wanted to be like Junior Mr. Britain. And 2 years later, I ended up winning the same title. So I always looked at Nathan like the template of where to go with your bodybuilding. And you know, always like 2 years after he's achieved something, I ended up doing it. So he's been a great, he's been like this beacon for me in bodybuilding on not giving up.
Yeah.
So respect Nathan.
Now, obviously, you said you followed Nathan in some ways. He obviously went out to Oxygen Gym in Kuwait at some point and made some tremendous gains out there. Has that ever been on the cards for you? Have you ever been offered to go out to Kuwait?
I haven't been offered. I contemplated it, but do you know what? With me, it's like I said to you earlier. Like, I own my house. I've put a lot of money into this property. I find it hard to leave things that I physically own. I was having this conversation yesterday, like, because I've got friends that are in like America right now who are chasing their dreams, and they are professionals. They're doing really well. They're British. But I was trying to explain like the difference is like a lot of these guys, they don't actually like own a property. They don't have investment, so you're kind of free.
Yeah.
And it's hard to explain the burden mentally you have when you've invested a lot of money into a property, and the thought of being away from it and it not being looked after is quite real. I don't know. This is something different about, you know, like, listen, if I was just someone who was just renting right now, and that was the way of living, then I would up and go wherever, because my salary is pretty good. Like, I'll just go and do whatever I want. But I've also very much been educated on the importance of investment in your property, in your bricks and your mortar. So I don't want to just leave my investment. And that's why I kind of reside here, and it's hard for me to just up and go. I'm sure my partner Yannicka, like, if I had to go, she would. The thing is, if I had to go, Yannicka would look after the house, but Yannicka's also needed in Norway sometimes because of work. So I don't want to leave my house unoccupied, basically. That's all it is.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned Patrick Tour earlier, who's your coach now. You've worked with several coaches in the past. Obviously, your last coach prior to Patrick was Chris Aceto as well. How do you find Patrick in comparison to most other coaches, and how has he helped you? Do you think he's a big reason as part of your success and what you're doing now?
Yeah, do you know what? I think with coaching, it just comes down to synchronicity. Like, there's many amazing coaches. I've worked with people that are fantastic, and when they tie up with the right person for them, they're going to see all the results in the world. And I have made progress with every coach I've ever worked with. They've all taught me something. I'm just most comfortable with Patrick, and I feel that he's the most passionate about being a coach out of all of them. So his passion for being a coach is encouraging for me, because then I know I'm in the hands of someone who cares about what they do. Again, not saying that the others aren't passionate, because they certainly are. But it's just a level of passion that comes from Patrick that's very important when someone's in your team. You know, you need a strong team. You need people who care about their role, who want to see the best for not only themselves as a coach, but for their client as well. So on a personal level, Patrick's he's just a wonderful human being who cares about progress, and who will go above and beyond to see you reach your potential.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, it's funny because I'm talking to you and I feel like I know you a lot better through everything I've seen from you on YouTube and all your videos and all that sort of stuff. So it's actually funny when you speak to someone who you feel like you sort of already know at a certain level, and especially because you're on Fuad Abiad's Bodybuilding and Bollocks podcast, where, you know, you're very open. You just say it how it is. You don't try to hide anything about your personal life or anything like that. I think that's really cool. What, I suppose, has motivated you to, be so open? Because I actually really admire it, because in the past I've struggled to be as open as you, and I've sort of gotten better at that. But I think it's really cool that you're able to be like that.
I think you answered the question. The fact that someone could admire that about someone. So it's enough for me to be open, because I'm not chasing admiration, but there's a level of respect you get for being, an open book. And obviously there's a risk of being that you reveal maybe a little bit too much about yourself, put yourself out there on the line. But I have nothing to hide. And I want to be someone that people genuinely feel like they know and understand. Because I suppose that's what I would do from someone. When I see people that I find very intriguing online and I enjoy their personalities, I hope that when I meet that person in the flesh, the person I expect them to be is the person that they are. I think there's nothing worse than a false perspective of someone created by themselves. which does not reflect who they truly are. Yeah. So, you know, if there's someone famous like online or something that I love, I hope that when I meet them, they're the same person that I expect them to be. I suppose there's that, and then there's just morals, you know, like from how are you raised and what does your parents teach you? You know, I never saw any false character from anybody who raised me. So it's hard for me to, I find it incredibly hard to lie. I find it very hard to keep secrets or be dishonest. So I'd rather just be myself and lay it all out there, because then I don't have to worry about trying to be anything else.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? And then you're judged on who you are, and if people don't like you, they don't like you for the right reasons.
Exactly.
so
Exactly. How do you deal with, I suppose, there's so much, because you are out there so much, you obviously at some point, anyone who's got out there, they have, you know, haters or whatever you want to call them, or people, critics or whatever. How do you deal with people like that? Because my sort of thing on replying to YouTube comments is I generally try to kill them with kindness, generally. And
yeah, I do as well.
And then sometimes they come back and that they're actually nice back to you, and it's like they just don't know what to do. And then other people will just not reply. But it's actually, is that so basically how you deal with it? You just
Yeah,
kill people?
I think you've done the right thing, because if they don't reply, they've lost.
Yeah.
So you've won. So you've chose the best path, because you've chose the one where many a time, like you say, they actually reply kindly, and then the ones that don't, they're lost anyway. Sort of, you know what I mean? Like I am often kind. It's very rare that I get to a point where I feel I need to be, you know, like aggressive or attack back. There's very few occasions that would cause that to happen, especially because everything's not, you know, it's all hypothetical. It's all online. It's not real. You know, it's not like someone's literally stabbed me physically in the back. You know, where it would be a very different story, you know, if someone actually physically caused abuse to me. But I don't think anyone can really do enough to cause me to really get to a point where I'm going to lose my rag and you know, act unprofessional. Because there's that as well. There's like choosing to be the professional as well. And I've seen a lot of people who are professionals, because that's what we are, you know, and what we do, who lose that professionalism because of something quite trivial. And I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
try and hold it together. You know, show that you're, because you're always being watched. You know, and there's going to be opportunities that are presented to you based on your character. You know, whether it be business or whatever. And if you're the person that's always losing your rag because everyone's saying this and that, then I don't think many opportunities are going to come your way either, because you've got your skin's too thin. So I think just that's another reason to be, you know, not reserved, but somewhat, you know, at least not an aggressive character by nature.
Yeah, absolutely. And man, like it's one of those things where you always wonder how you come off and come across, because you really don't know in yourself. You can watch a video of yourself and you still really sort of don't know exactly how you come across to other people, and if you come across as being sincere or whatever. And I just tell people now, like if they mention anything like this, I'm like, just be yourself, and that's the best way to come across, because I think people can read through bullshit. Like I think people, if you lie and you try to portray what other people want to see, I think that people can just see through it and they're just like, okay, well, that guy's full of shit, whatever. And I've seen that, man. I've seen that through people in this industry, and they've, you know, they've portrayed themselves one way, and then I hear several stories from several people saying something totally different. I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's why it seems like bullshit when they're talking like that, you know? So
it's pretty commonplace here, isn't it, in this industry?
Yeah. Unfortunately.
It's a little bit saturated with that at times, apparently.
Yeah, absolutely. But James, I want to thank you so much for coming on Desktop Bodybuilding, man. I really appreciate it. And thank you for being so honest, man, because I asked you a lot of questions and personal stuff, and you were just totally upfront with it. So I think that's really, really cool. Now,
it's catch up.
Sorry?
It's always good to catch up, mate.
Absolutely, absolutely. And hopefully we can do this again, you know, maybe sometime during your Olympia prep as well, because that would be awesome to have you on then and get your insight and get inside your mind when you're in that prep phase. So I think that'd be really cool.
But more than happy to do that, mate. You know, just you hit me up anytime. I'm available, mate. It's no problem for you.
Legend. I appreciate that. Now, do you want to thank any sponsors or thank anyone in your personal life or anything like that?
Yeah, I better thank Redcon because they pay my bills.
Yeah.
Cheers, Aaron. Thanks, mate. No, honestly, thanks to like Redcon, because they've all my opportunities. You know, they're here because I'm in a position where, you know, I can commit solely to bodybuilding, and it's because of Aaron and because of Eric, because of the team over there, that I'm actually even able to, you know, pursue this dream. So I owe massive thanks to them. Obviously, huge thanks to Patrick for being just a wonderful coach. And just thank you to everyone who's ever reached out. There's a lot of, I hate to say fans because I don't really consider people fans. I consider them more just people that are kind and supportive. But to every single one of those, thank you, because they're the reason that, I compete for myself, but you do compete also for people around you who you want to do good for. And those are the people that normally reach out. So thank you to them. And thank you for letting me kick it with you for a nice bit of your Sunday afternoon or daytime. I don't know what time it is where you are, but your Sunday. Is it Sunday where you are?
Sunday.
Even Sunday as well. I don't even know in Australia. But yeah, so thank you, man. Thank you.
No, man, it's been an absolute pleasure. I'd love to have you back on very, very soon. But that's James Hollingshead. He's a 2 times IFBB Pro Contest winner. Check him out on Instagram. The link will be in the description below as well on that. So for Xavier Wills and James Hollingshead, we are out. Hope you guys enjoyed my interview with James Hollingshead, 2 times IFBB Pro Contest winner. Let me know what you think in the comments below. How will James Hollingshead do at the 2021 Mr. Olympia? Will he be top 6? Will he be top 10? Let me know exactly where you think he might place and fit in at the 2021 Mr. Olympia. Plus, how do you think he would have done at the 2020 Mr. Olympia had he actually competed? Would he have been top 6? Would he have been top 7? Would he have placed a little bit lower? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And I want to thank James as well for reaching out and coming on the channel as well. It was absolutely amazing. And it's really cool when you actually connect with someone in terms of you have some similarities in terms of personality and whatnot as well, and then you just vibe and then you get really good interviews. And I hope it was a good interview. Let me know what you think in the comments below about the whole interview as well. So that's it from me. Make sure you guys subscribe, hit the notification bell button. That way you'll be notified of every video that goes up from myself, Xavier Wills, here at Desktop Bodybuilding. So for Xavier Wills, Desktop Bodybuilding, we are out.